All right, hello and welcome to BroPartisan Hacks. We are here with our weekly coverage of whatever stupid shit's going on in the world. I think we're at day 17 of since Putin decided he wanted a little piece of that Ukrainian action there. Day 17, yeah.
Yeah.
There has been, I don't know. You've probably seen it. Well, I don't know if you've seen it in the news. I don't know what you're watching or paying attention to, but over the last 4 or 5 days, the invasion's really slowed down. About a week, almost Monday or Sunday last week, everything kind of ground to a halt from the Ukrainian lines. It seemed like their lines were just approaching up to make contact and then pulling back and holding tight and waiting for basically their supply lines to catch up. Mariupol is almost completely surrounded by now, if it's not already. There's no escape for the local fighters from there. Kherson was taken. Kharkov is under siege right now. Kiev is not quite surrounded, but there's a press coming in from the eastern side. I think that's the Sumy Oblast. They're coming in from the eastern side and starting to make headway into the suburbs over there. Last night was pretty significant for as far as the aerial bombardment and the artillery strikes. The list of cities for the air raids was rather extensive. Kiev, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Poltava, Vinnytsia, Kryvyi Rog, Lviv, Odessa, Zhytomyr, Zaporozhye. The list goes on. There's probably like 15 or 16 names here that I can't pronounce. I'm skipping over the ones that I have heard before at least. But yeah, so it seems like things are progressing. I guess the invasion is progressing for the Russians. In some of the areas, they have mounted significant defense. They've been able to ambush tank columns moving in. A lot of the Russians moving into the eastern side of Kiev. There was a massive tank column that got blown up yesterday. They weren't using, you saw that one. So it was a big ambush, and I think they lost 3. I say the whole tank column was blown up. So the first 3 tanks were all blown up or damaged, and then the ones that came up behind started assaulting the ambush position, and I think it kind of broke off from there. That was some of the drone footage that came out yesterday. I don't know. It was surprising because they're moving into these urban areas with these tank columns exposed, and they're not using infantry cover. I think that'll be a situation that the commanders of the Russian military will soon change. It's one thing to have in American tactics. We've seen the movies or whatever. It's one thing to have tank battles in an open field or something like that, in the desert, right. World War II. And you would have the tank battles in there, but going into an urban atmosphere without infantry screening, is dumb. That's all there is to it. So I think their tactics are changing as they're moving into these urban areas, and they're learning the hard way.
Well, it said that they really thought they were going to be able to just roll in. People I think they really thought that the Ukrainians were just going to be like, yes, come on in. And they were just going to be able to roll right through. And so now I think, like you said, their tactics are having to change, and they're having to slow down because they're losing equipment. They're losing a lot of money. Like I've said previously, I've heard estimates that they're spending $20 million a day. It's a lot of background noise.
Oh yeah,
20 million.
He's having a good time.
20 million a day doing this war, and then when they lose those tanks, it's even more.
So early on, talking about equipment and losses, right? So early on, I guess, whether it's a way to save face or what, the Kremlin has claimed that they weren't supposed to be using like conscripts, like national servicemen. They were only supposed to be using their contract soldiers for this, and so there was something that came out that basically their version of the attorney general, their prosecutor general, whatever they're calling him over there, was tasked with basically opening up an investigation into their army for commanders who used conscripts in that. Right, so it's like it's either a totally way to try to save face, or the commanders did what they wanted. I don't know, like one of the two.
That's bullshit.
I thought it was interesting.
Bro, you can't send hundreds of thousands of soldiers and be like, oh, these aren't the ones we meant to send.
We're not supposed to send these guys. But it makes sense as to why, like, a lot of that happened in the northern. So that was where all the pictures were taken of, was with that northern force, and the guys out of Crimea were all contract soldiers, and that was why there was such a difference in effectiveness that you saw, because it was like all that abandoned equipment. I mean, you get some national, conscript guys who don't want to be there, obviously. They're like, hey, was that a rocket? I don't know. We better abandon the tank. Like,
run away.
So, and you see the guys coming out of the south, or at least, like, if they're gonna have to abandon it, they disable it, right? So it can't just be driven up, like somebody walk up and like climb inside, turn it back on, and drive it off to their farm.
Right, ride around for a little bit.
So one thing you've seen,
point the gun down and till the field.
Yeah. Would you go in reverse with that or forward? You fill the gun barrel with dirt.
I'd probably try forward first, just for fun.
In any case, so that's been happening, and it seems like they have pulled the conscripts back because we're not seeing the level of abandoned equipment, if nothing else, right?
Like I said, I think they're slowing down. I think they're realizing that they're going to have to slog this one out. Like, I don't think that they can keep doing kind of what they've been doing.
Yeah.
Because, the people are hunkering down. Weapons are getting better for the Ukrainians. They haven't been able to get in there and just and take it over like they thought they would. And I really think that a lot of that is like a misperception of how the reception was going to be. Like, I mean, really, like, I really think that even the generals probably thought, because you read enough propaganda, and you're going to think, all right, this is how this is going to go. You know what I mean? And so you've been propagandized for however long, and eventually you believe it. I mean, it's like the manufacturing consent that we deal with here.
You write an article, and then you have another article written that sources the first article to give it credibility. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a constant flow of I mean, how long did we in America really, really think that Iraq was involved in 9/11? Like it took us a minute to be like, wait a second, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. Why are we invading
Why
them?
are we invading her?
Like, but they put together the propaganda. They
No,
did
Iraq
their,
was weapons of mass destruction. You remember?
but
Weapons of mass destruction.
but they were stopping a 9/11.
We're gonna.
Like,
I mean, Bush came out and told us, and we didn't listen to him. When he was like, Saddam tried to kill my daddy. He literally came out and said it, and everyone was like, oh, yeah, push that under the what? Weapons of mass destruction. Look at this.
Yeah. But it was. I mean, this was a lot of propo.
Speaking of propaganda, I have a question for you,
Okay.
and this is just I'm going to show you 4 pictures.
All right.
Okay, you see this chick right here.
Okay.
All right.
Chick. Mm-hmm.
Chick. Here she is again.
Pregnant.
Pregnant. Is this the same woman?
No. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah?
Looks like. Yeah. Maybe.
Hair again.
Got the forehead.
Got the forehead. If you zoom in here, there's like a little freckle that was pointed out as something that was like, oh, look at this freckle. But I'm looking at her lips and her eyes.
What? What's the? I mean.
So the significance of this is that this is supposed to be that maternity hospital they blew up.
Oh, but it's not.
Well, it is. But there was nobody in there other than soldiers that had been using it for 5 days. And so she's a Ukrainian beauty blogger who's still alive and well and never was injured or anything.
How do you know she was never injured or anything?
Because I believe this picture was taken after this one. But I could be wrong about that.
Huh?
I said I could be wrong about that. But I believe this picture was taken after this one. So like she wasn't in the hospital.
Sure
That's what I'm saying. When it blew up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously she's alive.
Obviously she's alive and well.
Obviously she wasn't in the hospital when it got bombed. So,
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean she wasn't close. That doesn't mean she didn't get out when they knew that it was about to be bombed. I mean, it doesn't mean she didn't just leave out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking cocksmokes.
Like, I don't think she was ever there.
How would you know?
I wouldn't. But I'm just asking if it was the same lady.
I understand. She's still pregnant. Like, you can tell that's a real belly, and she's still really pregnant. Like, that's not fake. She could have very well been in that hospital. She could have evacuated. I don't know. I don't know what was in that hospital. Just seems like I don't know. You still bombed the hospital.
3 days before that, Russia said we're going to blow it up because there's all these other forces in there.
Right. So obviously she left. She didn't look. If she was in there, Russia said, "Hey, we're going to blow up this hospital," right? Mm. And then so they probably evacuated any maternity moms that were in there. She might have still had stuff that was in there. She might have had to go back and get a blanket. I don't know, but neither do you.
Right. I just think it's bullshit. It doesn't pass the smell test.
What smell test?
If for 3 days you're like, hey, we're going to blow up this hospital. Okay. At least 3 days, we're going to blow up this hospital.
Okay.
Okay, so you evacuate, right? You're like, oh, hey, we got to get all these people out of here because they're going to blow it up, right?
Okay.
So you let her go back?
After.
For what? To get a fucking blanket? No.
Oh!
That's what I'm saying.
So you've never been to a burned down house before?
I'm saying,
I have.
Why do you have blood on your face if you were safely evacuated? Did you get hit by some shit that fell on you? Is that what happened?
Maybe she failed.
You're going back to a burned out house carrying all of this. It doesn't pass the smell test. None of that makes any sense. That's all I'm saying. You can take it for what that's worth. I don't buy this.
I just think you watch too much Russian propaganda.
This is Ukrainian propaganda. What's the difference? What's the difference? You decide who's the good guys? I don't think there are any good guys. That's the difference for me.
So you think that the Ukrainians that are being invaded are equally bad?
I think their governments are equally corrupt. Do I feel bad for the people that are suffering? Yes, I do. I really do. Do I think that they blew up a hospital with people in it right now? This one? All I know is this picture's fake.
Again, obviously they weren't in the hospital. They would not be alive.
Yeah. So they blew up a hospital that had Azov forces in it for 3 days prior.
Why would they have any? Probably nobody was in that motherfucker if you told them 3 days prior. That's horseshit.
So then they just blew up the hospital, the waste ordinance?
Why would there be people in there if you told them 3 days prior? Why would any operatives be in there if you told them 3 days prior? Why would they have evacuated already if you told them 3 days prior?
That's a good point. So then nobody was in the hospital.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair. You just blew up a building.
That's dumb.
Yeah. If you were to stay there, that would be dumb. But they're doing really dumb stuff, right? Like I put it on Facebook. I don't know if you saw it, right? It was a Ukrainian post, and it was like, hey, forces are stocking up right here, and they like drew a little circle around their building on a map, and we're like, we're getting ready to fight the Russians. And I'm like, how stupid are you guys? Like it's proven fact by this point that people are using this Telegram app to like Russian intelligence is using your messages against you.
Yeah.
And you think you're out there like putting up a good fight, telling new soldiers where to go, and all you're telling them is where the Russian artillery rounds to land. And just because you're in a school or hanging out in this administrative building, it doesn't matter. You're like, hey, look at all the guns and armor we have here at this building. Come and join us. The only people that are really coming to join you are the missiles. It's just so dumb. I'm so dumb. So dumb.
Yeah, I agree. But like, I don't know.
So anyway, that's
again. So evil Ukrainian government. What have they done that's equally bad to the Russian government?
Equally bad?
Mm-hmm. Because you said they're both bad. So and they're equally whatever. What is the same? What is
so I think we talked about it last time where and you maybe disagreed with me, but it's essentially like Ukrainian puppet government for America right now, like straight up. We put those guys in power. They do what we say. Since 2014, the Maidan protest. By cozying up to NATO, that creates for Russia a Cuban Missile Crisis. Regardless of whether you think that's the case or not.
Except for, in order to cozy up to NATO, they had to denuclearize. So, no, that is incorrect.
They didn't.
No, they did.
But they didn't.
But they did. That's why Russia's invading, because they don't have fucking nukes. Look it up.
Well, they never. Hold on. Time out. They never did.
They did. They wanted to join NATO, so
they had
in order they had to nuclearize. Right? You think Russia, if Ukraine had nukes, you think Russia would be fucking rolling in right now? No. No. It's the same reason that we won't invade Iran. It's the same reason we won't invade North Korea. It's the same reason that anyone with nukes, America doesn't invade. Iraq, not a problem. Syria, not a problem. They don't have fucking nukes. We can go do whatever we want. Ukraine, oh, they got rid of your nukes? We're coming.
Great.
Right. I'm just saying, like, that's basically what went down. Because I'm telling you, if Ukraine still had nuclear weapons, there's no way on this earth that Russia invades. And that's why North Korea, you'd be stupid to denuclearize. And with Iran, as soon as you do, what's going to happen?
Hold on a second. That happened in 1994.
We coming for that ass.
So that happened in 1994. What you're talking about? It's not like a recent thing. I'm just talking about it like it's recent history.
Oh, I thought it was. Somebody else was talking about it. It was like it was recent history.
No. So,
still,
thousands of nuclear arms had been left on Ukrainian soil by Moscow after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. In the years that followed, Ukraine made the decision to completely denuclearize. In exchange, the U.S. and UK and Russia would guarantee Ukraine's security in a 1994 agreement known as the Budapest Memorandum. So that was in 1994. And if you recall, I think it was in 1991, during the collapse of the Soviet Union, that our people said, we're not going to let NATO go one step further, closer to Russia, right? And we lied about that. This wasn't recent. This was after that, where everyone's still like trying to figure out some peaceful ground to do this in. I don't know. The way I look at this is I'm like, okay, so if China or Russia or somebody else had set up shop in, say, Colombia, right?
Doing my show.
And they set up shop in Colombia, and they had this military agreement where they put weapons and armament and bases and nukes in Colombia. And they said, all right, this is it, United States. We're not going any further. And then they started taking started bringing in, El Salvador and Honduras. And then they got up to Mexico. And then they're like, hey, we're going to bring in Mexico. I don't think that we would be okay with that.
It's valid.
Right.
However.
That's all I'm saying.
However, I get what you're saying. But let's say that the entire South American continent united, regardless of whether or not Russia was involved, and they called themselves the
United States of South America or whatever.
South American Union, right? So now they're all like the EU.
Yeah, the whole continent.
So they're all together, right? They trade together, free trade, no borders, whatever. And then Mexico asks to join. They freely trade with Russia. And Mexico asks to join them. They're like, hey, I like what you guys got going on down there.
Let me join this little trade union thing.
Would we still have a leg to stand on? I don't think so. That's just what I think. Like, if they were, because it's all of Europe is already in a little thing with the exception of fucking England, because they're stupid. But there's already a European Union, and part of Europe also wants to join, because they're part of Europe, right there. It just depends on where you think that border ends.
Right, but see, and that's the difference between NATO and the European Union. There is no defense clause in the European Union. There's no common defense clause. Nothing about it is military.
But they're all also part of NATO. So the EU is also part of NATO. So every country that's in the EU is also in NATO. So,
But they're two
sure,
different things. That's what I'm saying.
sure, but one's a what treaty organization and one's a trading.
Essentially,
You
yeah.
know,
Which one has more power?
probably NATO, because that's because North America's the United States.
Yeah.
Because we're in that one.
Yeah. So,
But they outsource their military to us. So
right, exactly. So, yeah, it's the North American Army. Please come save us, alliance. Right.
But
that's what
my
I'm saying.
point is,
I'm just.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that at the same time, I think people have a right to be free to choose what they want to do.
Yes.
And you can call it a puppet, whatever. Obviously, the people in Ukraine agree with that puppet government.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Maybe not all of them.
There's a lot, yeah. I mean, but it
maybe
you can't,
not all of them.
Right. But you can't say, okay, so like, again, you can't say either or, either all or nothing kind of deal, right? And like, I agree with that, right? It'd be like, if we get dragged into this war, there's going to be people who are like, yeah, and there's going to be a lot of people who are like, no, right? Like, our country is going to be split on how we feel about these things, right? I mean, every place is the same. Nobody agrees. The point is that these are the ones in power, right? And they're the ones making the decision and making all the calls. And the whole country is behind those calls. Now, I think you're right that maybe the Russians had the issue with, hey, we thought you guys, a lot more of you were going to agree with us or whatever. Maybe you didn't. The ones that did agree with them have joined the DNR and the Luhansk, the LNR. Those two militia groups that were basically already under constant siege from the Ukrainian army in the Donbass region. They're marching with the Russians. I mean, those guys have joined them. Obviously, you've got the Azov battalions and the standing Ukrainian army fighting them, along with militia members on the Eastern Front, or not the Eastern Front, the west side of the country. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying everybody's going to go along with every decision the government makes. What I'm saying is that the government's in power and they're ultimately responsible for it. And it, like I said, it sucks. It sucks that people are getting caught in it. What do you think, though? I mean, I've kind of beat that horse. What do you think is going to happen, like, in the next 90 days? What do you think Russia's end goal is? What is their victory condition? Can they ever reach one?
I think it's occupation.
Yeah.
Honestly, and obviously they really thought they were just going to annex and everything would be fine, and there would be no fight. I see the Russian occupation as harder to occupy than it was for us to occupy Afghanistan or Iraq. I think it's going to be more expensive. I think they're going to be massively in debt to China. I think this expands Chinese empire more than anything else. I think this really, really expands China's economic reach kind of everywhere. Mm-hmm. Because they're going to be, I think they're the ones funding this war right now.
Is China?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They funded our war with Iraq, so I mean, it's kind of interesting. They've been kind of playing these things pretty well.
You guys want to go throw lives away? Yeah. Have some money. We can print this forever too. Yeah.
The other thing that I think is interesting, and so I find this really funny, is I think gas prices will level off eventually. Of course, nobody everybody wants to hyperbolize, and normally I do too because I love hyperbole. But you know,
No. Sorry.
the it's going to level off, and I think the market cannot sustain $160 a barrel, and $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon, $6 a gallon. The market can't sustain that.
Yeah.
Because people will quit driving, and then you'll lose money. But right now, and this is one of the things that's bothered me about all of this inflation stuff, just in general, is profits are soaring for companies. The profit margin for products is through the fucking roof. So what does that mean? Does that mean that inflation is real? Because to me, if your costs stay the same and then your price goes up, it's not inflation.
So
that's you raising prices because you can.
I think there's two different things with that, right? I was talking about a friend of mine who is a pilot, and he was talking about air fuel, right? And I guess before I get into that, right? So I've been trending on the commodities market, what the gas price is. And I know that didn't go through on my screen, but gasoline went up to $3.85. Oil. This is gas futures, right? So this is future trading values. Mm-hmm. So that was what I sent you that one day. I think it was like $3.85, $3.74 per gallon, and the crude oil at that point, which is per barrel, I think was 130 something that day. And I think that was about as high as it got, at least on this, what this app was showing.
Which is double. That's double what it normally is.
Right.
Oil is typically traded $50, $60
$60 a barrel. Right. So it's double what it was, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with uncertainty, because this is all oil futures, right? So this
is it's the market.
Right.
Yes.
So
just like Tesla isn't selling for what it's worth.
Right.
Right?
Obviously, right? It's like, hey, what it's gonna be worth, right? And so like all oil trading, the majority of oil trading is in futures.
Right.
And I think we're seeing a lot of this driven north.
It's speculation.
It's speculation, right?
It's all it is.
It's all it's speculation. However, and this is why it's important at the gas pumps. If I own a tank that can hold 5,000 gallons, right? If I've got a 5,000 gallon, say, air fuel tank, right? That's what we were talking about with my friend. Mm-hmm. And I run a business that I have to be able to buy the gas. I know in my head it takes about 3 months for people to buy this gas, right? Mm-hmm. I know in my head that I've got to have the money up front to refill my tank 3 months from now.
Right.
Which means I have to sell the gas today for the profit margin I'm going to need to fill it up 3 months from now. So I can't sell it to you for what I bought it at. I have to sell it for you enough to refill my tank 3 months from now. Which is why a lot of these gas prices you're seeing skyrocket. People are anticipating higher gas prices in the future. It's the same thing, it's the same thing. If you've got to fill up a 300,000 gallon tank or whatever the hell these gas tanks are, I don't know how much they hold, 10,000 gallons or whatever.
Yeah.
Shit, man, that's $400,000 to fill up my tank. Like, I just got to have it.
Yeah, I hear you.
So
But like. So the meme that I probably sent you was the one about Shell buying a shit ton of oil from Russia for dirt cheap.
I don't think you sent that one to me.
I didn't send it to you.
You did not send it to me. I sent you one that said I might have to do some of that shady Klondike bar shit to get gas soon.
So, let's see. It's track season.
It's track season.
So I've got.
Well, while you're looking that meme up, do you remember? So I guess Pakistan. Go
sorry.
ahead.
It says Shell bought Russian oil at the biggest discount in recorded history. At the same time, the price you pay at the pump is rising at the fastest rate ever. Shell.
So the first sentence was, I can't see that. It's totally just whited out.
Sorry.
What was the first sentence? Read it again.
It says Shell bought Russian oil at the biggest discount in recorded history. This is from the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. Meanwhile, gas pumps or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if they just buy it through like their Pemex intermediaries, they can do it anyway. That's the thing. It's like you talked about the European Union, right? And half the countries in the EU get all of their oil and gas from Russia, and they're not sanctioning the Russian oil. They'll be like, hey, we're not going to buy your chiclets or whatever the Russian products are, but we're still going to buy your oil, like, because our country will just turn off if we don't, because we've made stupid decisions on our energy plan. Like, all of Germany, all of Italy, most of Scandinavia gets their oil from Russia. They're not sanctioning them.
Yeah.
And now not only are they not using our credit system to trade that oil, they're now actually using the Chinese credit system, this CHIPS program or whatever they call it, instead of the European one's called SWIFT. Like, so now they're still buying the oil, but they're using the Chinese system instead. And here we are.
Yeah. So
looking at $4 a pump, and now Mexico, they're not doing this thing. And you see this story here. People in Texas, oil capital of the United States, are driving to Mexico to get their gas because it's cheaper. Yeah. They're saying it's $1 less.
They're gonna get their gas and their insulin.
Yeah, gotta get your gas and your insulin. You can just move to El Paso. You can drive 20 minutes across the border and fill up the tank for about $30 less.
Yeah, man, y'all gotta get you some Kroger points.
get 30 cents off. Yeah.
Shit.
You know what's shitty is like the Kroger around here. So the Kroger around here is priced so that if you have the discount, it takes it down to the Buc-ee's price.
Oh, yeah, no. Because we get $1 off because, our grocery bill is way higher than everyone else's.
Right.
So we get $1 off gas.
Yeah.
Every time. For both cars.
Yeah.
But they only let you do, so what we were doing for a long time was we would take both cars up to the pump and fill them both up. Then we realized they cap you at 35 gallons.
So you gotta like alternate weeks.
Yeah. So
jerks.
Motherfuckers.
Oh, but look who's on the main screen. It's Shell.
Yeah. Bro. Yeah. No, I guess I just like it's all horseshit, like. Because I've been looking into this stuff because I'm really confused by all of it. Because I keep seeing memes that's like, oh, well, if you had the Keystone Pipeline, then, we would 660 barrels a day. And then I thought to myself, yeah, but it wasn't finished. Yeah, but that was importing Canadian oil. That wasn't even American oil. So I don't understand where you're coming from with that. So it's not like we would be energy independent if we were transporting Canadian oil down to the Mississippi so that they could ship oil out from there. I don't know what the fuck people are talking about. So I've been looking into this.
What'd you find?
So we've talked about it before, you and I. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the show, but America has enough oil underground and in reserve to go for the next 100 to 150 fucking years. The oil they found in Alaska is like one of the largest oil wells ever. The oil they found in North Dakota is like 503 billion fucking barrels of oil. Like bigger than Saudi, bigger than Russia, bigger than anywhere else than North Dakota. Mm-hmm. Just North Dakota has more oil than half of these other countries we're importing oil from. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah. Like just in South Dakota. Yeah.
Yeah. And so from what I've read also, and then there's more they found under the Rocky Mountains, which they haven't, because it's Colorado and they're not letting y'all fuck up their mountains. But there's even more under there. So you're like environmentally, they would have to find a way to get under the mountains without fucking completely ruining the Rocky Mountains. Because again, that's Colorado and they're not going to let you do that. So, but there's another like 500 billion, whatever, schmiddity-doo, right?
Brazilian.
Right. Like that yes, that they're not even tapping into yet. Like literally, if we cut off all oil right now it would take probably a year to 5 years to get all of that. But again, we have enough in reserve right now. They've shut down drilling in Odessa. There's still oil there that they haven't pumped out, but they've shut it down where they're not pumping out oil from there. Like, my point is that energy independence or oil independence is not going to get us what y'all think it is. Mm-hmm. What drives these prices is the market and profit. So the companies are going to do whatever is profitable for them. If they're having to pump their own, obviously they're spending more money rather than just going over and buying it. Mm-hmm. When they can buy it for cheap from someone else and then come in here and sell it for a fuckload. Like, that's what's going on. And so until you say you take control of these companies, you say you're getting your oil from here, period, we're shutting it down, done. I mean, that's not free trade, so they're not going to do that. That's anti-capitalist, so they're not going to do that. But that's really the only way to, if you wanted to control oil prices, it would have to come from that. And you don't want that because that's socialism.
Well, you could do it without necessarily controlling the market. You just put restrictive tariffs on the companies importing oil. And then they have to drill here, right? But then again, you have to let them drill here, and just quick Google search.
9,000 fucking leases.
I understand.
There are 9,000 leases on American soil, in government land.
And in most of those, like I said, I think we talked about it last time, or not last time, but time before that, have been capped because, like you said, we can just go buy it cheaper elsewhere. We don't have to pump it out, pay people here, and do the things here that we have to do.
Right. So it has fuck all to do with Biden. That's what I'm saying. Like, I really feel like, and this is one thing that I've like, because same shit happened under Obama, and same shit happened under Bush, and whoop. And I was like, how much control does the president have over this? And the answer is not a fucking lot. No. Like, it just, I just don't understand why we keep blaming the government for the shit that we don't want the government involved in. Or y'all don't want the government involved in. Like,
most of the power that the president wields is actually through the EPA, because the EPA is considered part of the executive branch. That's where most of the power comes from to regulate and control the oil industry or chemical industry, any industry. Not saying it's not important. It's just measured approach, right? So that's they probably have more authority than you think as far as diktats on regulations, from what it sounds like. But again, that's neither here nor there. This is just stating what I think to be true. I
don't know. My point is I think that the inflation is fake. I just do. I think it's fake.
It's all speculation, so then it should come back down, no problem.
Because here's the thing, Robert, is you've had record profits, record money going into the hands of the elite, the few, right? The second people get paid a couple dollars more an hour, milk goes to $12 a fucking gallon. Like, it is fake as fuck. We have been pumping money because I don't think costs are going up.
Do you think that this is what we were talking about over a year or two ago, when we were like, the government was just printing money? Do you think we're finally seeing the effects of that come through?
No, because I still think it has to, because again, I don't see the costs actually rising for people. I mean, across the board, not just oil and gas, but I mean, across the board, the prices are rising and people are making surging profits, but the costs for them aren't actually rising. You don't have, it's not inflation. It's not inflation when it's record profits. That's not inflation. That's just raising prices because the costs aren't going up.
So we were
how come only regular folks are feeling the effects of inflation and not anybody else?
That's not true.
Why are they making more money?
That's not true.
It is true.
No, listen to me.
It is true. Look across the board.
It is. It's across the board, and it's industry wide as well, right? So like, we can't get some parts, period, right? There's parts we just can't get, and the things that we can get, this is like in my work, right? The things that we can get, a lot of them have doubled or tripled in price. Right? So like, I need an exchanger, just a water exchanger, right? But I got to get it made out of this special metal. Last year, this exchanger was like $67,000, and I needed 2 of them. And the business said, hey man, that sounds pretty expensive. Let's hold off and wait, right? This was last year. I went and got it requoted like a month ago, and it's up to like $90,000 for one exchanger. And they're not big. They're just little bitty exchangers, right? But I gotta have this special metal or whatever. There's instrumentation that we use, like pressure transmitters, limit switches, electronic software, right? We're at 8 to 10 week delivery time on everything. Everything. We can't throw enough money at the problem to solve it, right? Shit doesn't exist. It's not available.
I got the same problem with batteries. However, it's not costing more to produce those things. Availability is down, so demand is up, so they can raise their prices. That's not inflation.
Yes,
that's the fucking market.
Textbook inflation.
No, it's not.
That is demand-driven inflation. Demand pull inflation.
No.
That is textbook inflation. That is textbook inflation. Demand pull inflation.
Let's look.
If you've got a whole bunch of people that need something, but you don't have enough to go around, it's inflation. That is demand pull inflation. It's one of 2 drivers that can cause inflation.
Too many dollars chasing too few goods. All right. That's not inflation the way people would think about it, I guess. It's not because there's more money in the economy.
It's not. Yes, that saying is not because there's more money in the economy. It's there's less goods in the economy. And I think we've got a little bit of both because we do have more money in the economy. We have more money floating around. Like you said, there's more dollars. People are making $2-3 a year, extra or whatever, an hour. And then milk goes to $12 a gallon, right? You got two different things going on.
My point is, that they've been pumping money into the economy for however long, and it didn't matter until people started making more money. And people started demanding to be paid more money. Mm-hmm. And so they're like,
all right, well, fuck you then.
Yeah, basically.
Essentially, right? That's what you're saying. I understand. I get it.
So it's a wash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
zero-sum game. You make a little bit more, but everything costs more. Like, yeah. Like I definitely understand what you're saying, and I think there's some truth to that. I think it's way more complicated than some evil old guy sitting around a room going, fuck these peasants. Like,
oh, I think that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what happens.
That's exactly what's going on.
And then they're like, Putin, invade Ukraine. It'll be hilarious.
Yep. I think that's exactly what's happening. Probably not where they think it's hilarious, but they're, it'll make us more money, and it'll, keep their hopes down.
Right.
People were starting to feel themselves.
Really demoralize everything. Yeah. Yeah. People, I don't know. What do you think happens? What happens 5 years from now? After all this is Russia still occupying? 5 years from now, is Russia still occupying Ukraine?
Oh, no.
Has the Chinese yuan overtaken the global petrodollar?
No. Americans elect a warmongering Republican, and then we go to war again. And we go kick Russia out of the Ukraine, and then we basically, that's another outpost for America, is the Ukraine. And then, we're at war for another at least 10 to 20 years.
I saw something, it seemed like a dubious source, right? I'm just going to say that up front. Very dubious source. But it sounded like it was something we would do. And it was that Americans had started training insurgents in Iraq to go plant them in Ukraine after Russia takes control.
It's not a bad idea.
Right? Completely dubious source, because the source was basically like the oh god, I can't remember who it was, but it was basically like one of the groups that had ambushed American convoys in Iraq. Was responsible for most of them. I can't remember the name of it though. It started with an A. Al-Shabaab Sharif or something like that. I don't know.
That seems racist. I don't know. Carry on.
Al-Qaeda. It wasn't Al-Qaeda though. It was something like that though.
Yeah.
But it was one of those groups, and it was basically like, hey, our resistance intelligence forces have found American bases training insurgents to go to Ukraine. Now I think the go to Ukraine thing is them putting their little spin on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're training guerrilla fighters all over the world. That's what the Green Berets do, right?
Yeah, I know that we have some of our mercenary forces, the black box or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah. PMCs. Yeah.
Which is funny. So the other day, I was sitting in the office at the coach's office the school there, and in walks kid I haven't seen in, I don't know, 5 years, 6,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 6, long time. I'm one of the only coaches that have stayed through the coaching changes. Like I've been there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And a kid walks in, and he's like, hey, I recognize that guy. And we start chopping it up, and I get to ask him. He'd been in the military. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing now? He's like, I'm done. Blah 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 blah. No, he joined one of those special forces, black ops, whoop de whoop, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna come up here and during the day and work out and, that kind of thing.
She's
Funny
like jacked.
though. No, yeah, super jacked. He played defensive end for us. He's a big kid already, and now I think he's even bigger now. But
growing up does that.
he it's funny because I haven't seen him in a few weeks. Now that I think about it, so he might be doing stuff over there. He said he's making a shit ton of money doing the mercenary stuff versus what he was making. Like he's like pulling in 6 figures plus.
Yeah. Oh yeah, easy.
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 Making a lot of money.
Man, I just glanced over at Telegram and I found this. I translated the little caption on this picture I was looking at.
Yeah.
It's like, here in the village, defensive units have placed positions in the Kalinka kindergarten. Building is located on the Moldezna Street 4. Like, right here. They're doxing themselves. They're like, hey, look, this is the building. We drew a little square around it. You see it right here? Your aerial photographs? Bomb this one, please.
I mean, I get what you're saying. Do you think they're...
These people never heard of OPSEC?
Right. And the Russians know how to use Facebook, people. They hacked our whole election. Hold on, I gotta plug in.
Let this be a lesson to anyone who loves social media. If you're ever in the shit, so to speak, don't ever dox yourself. You're gonna catch a missile.
You're gonna catch a missile.
That's what happened, man. I've seen it. I've seen the videos. And it's like daytime, hey, we're doing this. We're over here at this building, and here's the nighttime bombing right on the building. Like every time. Every time. It's pretty sad. Goodness.
Yeah. So for wow.
So I don't think Putin can control all of Ukraine, even with an occupation. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he might or is likely to annex the eastern portion of Ukraine. He'll probably keep the Crimean Peninsula to keep strategic access to the seas, the Black Sea, and keep that canal open militarily.
Yeah.
Kiev and the eastern or western areas past the Bug River, I think, or the Dnieper River. I don't know which one runs north-south. Maybe they both do. Anyway, there's basically a river that runs from Kiev south and everything. I think he might be. No, because he won't split Kiev. I don't believe that's part of his plan. He's likely going to try to cut the head off the snake, cut off the government, complete his quote-unquote demilitarization of the country.
Yeah.
He'll probably leave token forces or maybe even substantial forces in the near future in some of these major cities. And install some puppet government, which takes us to what the United States is already talking about, is setting up some sort of Ukrainian government in exile. And that could be kept somewhere either in London or maybe in Brussels, with the EU thing there.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is I think, like you said, eventually the government in exile and the puppet government will eventually be forced into a conflict through either UN, EU, or NATO forces to go in and kick them out.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think, especially if we try to set up this government in exile thing, it will lead to future wars. That's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sucks. You know what's stupid? I think the stupidest thing I've heard us do, right, is talk about sanctioning India.
For?
India's not on board. India are they're pretty close allies with Russia, right? Because the Indians don't like the Chinese. There's a lot of bad blood between India and China, and like the Kashmiri regions and those the northern area in India. And China is actually a contested area right now. It's kind of like a no-go zone between South Korea and North Korea. But there's like a whole region of mountains, right, between India and China that's like contested. And most weaponry that the Indian army has is actually from Russia. All their advanced tech, all their big guns, most of their small arms fire all comes from Russia. And so us
that's true.
trying to put pressure on India is stupid. To try and get them to like turn against their very close, very big neighbor. And like the whole like I'm gonna bring you freedom doesn't really hold a lot of weight when you're threatening the largest democracy in the world. So I don't know, man. I don't like where things are going in that region of the world anyway. And when I saw that, I was very disappointed in our State Department. I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, it seemed really weird. So that's kind of the unknown for me is because India has been a close ally, at least an ally of the United States in that region, or a friend. Maybe not military ally or anything, but a friend in the region, a friendly country. So I was very disappointed to hear that we're trying to essentially push them away or push them into doing something they don't want to do. Through sanctions. Like, that just seems not smart. So I did see funny story, that picture I sent you where I guess Pakistan or India, I think it was the Indian military, somebody accidentally like fell on like the button to push a missile and launched it to Pakistan, I believe. And so then the Pakistani military was going to fire a retaliation missile, but instead of punching in like 5,500 meters, they punched in 550 meters, and the missile literally like went up and came right back down, and their town like blew up like their own city in Pakistan. Oops. It's like the range of the missile is 550 kilometers, but one of the army men mistakenly entered 550 meters.
Wow.
Oops.
Wow.
So yeah, tensions are high, man. I don't know what's gonna happen. I hear that they're no longer trying to have the ceasefire talks in Belarus, obviously, because Belarus is not a neutral party. So there was talk of it being moved to like Azerbaijan or somewhere south, across the Black Sea from Ukraine, to have their negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. I don't know if that was going to happen or not, but it seemed like they weren't happy with Belarus, and the Russians want to keep the Americans out of it, so they're not going to Poland. Because Vice President Kamala Harris apparently, I guess, is in Poland still.
Yeah.
And I still haven't heard the deal about what's happening with the MiGs. Last I saw, it was a no-go for flying NATO craft into the airspace of Ukraine.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of stuff up in the air about how they're going to handle the Ukraine.
Well, I think there's one serious consideration that nobody's really talked about, is that we have been pumping in anti-tank and anti-aircraft weaponry, right? Manpads, Stinger missiles, you name it. Javelins. All those weapons are being poured into Ukraine, right? And they're being captured, and they're being abandoned by military forces. Now, what happens when you get some, mafioso or whatever you have in the Ukraine, gang lord, who winds up with like a Stinger missile or a Javelin missile or a, in-law or something like that nature. And then they start selling them on the black market.
Yeah.
To whoever wants to buy them. These things can shoot down an aircraft. Like 30,000 feet. Civilian plane. These things are capable of that. At least the Manpads are. The Stingers I think they're shorter range, but like the big Manpads can shoot down a 737 or a 777.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we gonna have to start arming civilian aircraft with flares? One-time flares to like not get blown up as they fly over Eastern Europe for the next 5-10 years. I don't know. That's a lot of weapons. And I've seen a lot of stuff just abandoned, troops retreating. You can't take it with you. You got to leave it there. Maybe the other army comes in and picks it up. Maybe they don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
either.
That's a bit of a concern I had brought to my attention the other day. It was just considering like the amount of hardware that's in that country right now. And you see civilians driving off with like anti-aircraft platforms.
Yeah. Or making their own and blowing themselves up.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The guy's homemade RPG. I wonder if I could find that. Let's see here. It was oh gosh. Homemade RPG. So a hyphen. A civilian. Yes. Did I find it? Yes, I did find it. Hold on. I gotta figure out how to get this to go through. Oh, it's small.
Oh yeah. But it's still, you can still see it.
You can't hear it. I can hear it. I don't think the recording is taking it, though. So he's alive. Let's see that again. He's got... So what it is, for anybody watching this, he's got an RPG grenade in this homemade pipe, right? Now, the thing about guns and bullets and explosives is usually you have to engineer it and with a safety factor, right? Because not all explosive and granular powder is the same. You kind of have to account for like, okay, well, if this explosive in the bullet, or in this case RPG, is stronger or weaker, you got to have so much thickness of your metal to make sure it doesn't blow up in your face. He just took a pipe.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I'm sure it's fine, right? I'm sure he didn't seem like he was bleeding profusely from the side of his face in the video at the end. So
Yeah, he's alive.
He's alive. He's fine. Anyway, don't make homemade RPGs for ordnance you find on the, in the battlefield. Seems like a bad idea.
Thank you for watching this episode of BroPartisan Hacks with Reese and Rob. We really, really appreciate you watching, tuning in. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to us. We're putting out content as often as we can. Share it with your friends. Get it out there. Get our names out there. Also, hit that bell, tap that bell right there so that you can get updated when we put out a new video. Rob and I are trying to pump these videos out as often as we can. However, we both have day jobs, we have families, so our schedules have to line up so that we can make a new video. Speaking of our day jobs, our opinions and views expressed are our own and in no way represent those of our respective employers. Thank you. Thanks again for watching.